Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. I am Raresh.
And I'm Andrea.
We've been traveling a lot in the past years. We've also been living in a couple of countries.
And every time we changed a country, we also struggled with finding accommodation. We've moved to the Netherlands 1 year ago, last summer, so we thought it's really interesting and very nice to share with you some tips and tricks on how to find an apartment in the Netherlands and what we used to actually secure an apartment. It was really interesting how many places we changed until we could find an apartment to rent. This is also because you need certain documents and motivations to be able to secure an apartment here. So join us, and we hope that our tips will help you in finding your dream apartment in the Netherlands.
Right guys, so before we jump into it, I guess it's nice to share our story a bit. So as we said, we traveled in the past year. We've also lived in a couple of countries. Before we moved to the Netherlands, we lived in Sweden, where we also studied. And the moment we found out about this opportunity to come here, we were like, okay, why not? Let's try it. Little did we know how difficult it would be to find a place to live, a place to stay here in the Netherlands. In case you don't know, the Netherlands is currently facing a housing crisis. It's basically the demand is far greater than what the current offer is in the market, which means that the prices literally skyrocketed. The prices are pretty much crazy here, and it's very difficult for people to find accommodation, regardless of where they come from. It's also the case for Dutch nationals, so not just expats like us. We didn't expect that last year, and we actually started searching for apartments around 2 months before we left for here. And you probably guessed it, we didn't find anything before actually coming here. Would we do it again? Probably. It was kind of fun, adventurous, I guess, but if you are not the adventurous type, or you want a bit more certainty in your life, I would not recommend you doing that. So make sure you take your time to find a nice house. We came here from Sweden. We booked a really nice campsite in a holiday village called Europarks. It's like a chain. It's everywhere in the Netherlands. We booked the one in south of Amsterdam, in Amsterdamse Bos. The reason we booked it is because we found a very good deal, like a last-minute deal for 1 month. It wasn't great, but it was better than getting a hotel or an Airbnb, which was crazy expensive. So yeah, we ended up living in a very small, like 9 square meter place with all our house behind, because it was very difficult to find a place. 1 month later, we had to move outside Amsterdam because we couldn't keep the same rates as we did at the beginning of our trip. So we moved somewhere east of Amersfoort, which is a very nice city around center eastern part of Netherlands. We moved again to another vacation village, but it was more remote, more country, like the countryside. It was really nice. We had like a really small vacation home. We had it for a very good price. We actually had a lot of fun, even though commuting to work was really difficult for us. We're talking about like 1 hour and 30 minutes one way, so it was kind of difficult. But nevertheless, after around 2 to 3 months of changing places, we finally found an offer here. We found something in Utrecht at the time. Spoiler alert, we currently live in Rotterdam, so we changed our address since then. But it's been challenging, took us some time, but there is hope, there are chances, of course. It also depends on your motivation, it also depends on how much time you have to work on this, and of course, I guess the biggest factor would be how much money you are willing to spend on your accommodation. But basically, it's been pretty tough for us. I guess we really enjoyed the whole process. We felt like it was an adventure, maybe because we were young, I don't know. But just so you know, have those expectations before you decide to come here, because life is not pink here in terms of accommodations. Right now we are living in Rotterdam. We found this apartment in a pretty nice neighborhood as well. We really like it here. Finding an apartment before and after getting more and more income and more acclimatized with the system, it was a bit easier for us to find this apartment, of course. But if it's your first time, it's going to be a bit more complex. So let's take you through some of our tips on how to rent an apartment here. So now I guess it's time to talk about the most important thing, which is the price you are going to pay for rentals. Netherlands is a pretty small country, but there are a lot of places where you could live in, so it's kind of difficult to make an average, of course. The whole country is kind of expensive compared to the rest of Europe. But for the sake of this video, let's just take the 4 biggest cities in the Netherlands. So Amsterdam, of course, Rotterdam, the place where we currently live in, The Hague, and Utrecht. If you want to come to the Netherlands, maybe your first instinct would be to move to Amsterdam. But how is it like to live there actually in terms of housing costs? Well, unfortunately, because it's the most important city in the Netherlands, it also means that it's also the most expensive. Housing prices have increased so much in the past years that it's at an all-time high. It's become pretty much impossible for a lot of people to actually live there. Of course, unless you have a pretty good income, or you and your partner as well have pretty good incomes. So, but yeah, let's talk about prices. So, Amsterdam. If you're looking around the center, if you're looking at like more modern areas like Zuid, for example, of course you're gonna have to pay for it. Even for smaller 1-bedroom apartments, you are looking at least 2,000 euros per month, which is insane if you ask me. However, housing in general outside those areas should typically be between 1,000 to 2,000 euros per month, which is still a lot if you ask me. So, for example, there's a lot of really nice redevelopment areas, for example, in the western part of the city or in the southeastern part, Bijlmer area, where you will find a lot of like those 60s, 70s style buildings in areas that are getting, really nice now. They're getting redeveloped. And there you will definitely find apartments at 1,000, 1,200, 1,400 euros per month, which I would say would be a pretty good price for Amsterdam. Of course, again, depending on where you want to stay, bigger the apartment, the better the area, the more modern it is. Expect to pay even up to 3,000 euros per month for Amsterdam. If we're looking at The Hague, which is the 3rd biggest city in the Netherlands, unfortunately, it's kind of the same story. So, in case you didn't know, The Hague is the de facto capital of the Netherlands, which means all the government institutions, all the financial institutions are located there, all the embassies, all the diplomatic relations and everything, which makes The Hague also a very, very important city, which also makes it a very expensive city. So, from what I've seen so far, I see literally the same prices as in Amsterdam. So if you want to stay like in nicer areas in the center, you will definitely have to pay more than 2,000 per month. However, of course, there are other options outside the center, perhaps in the northern part, where again, you will find those 50s, 60s style of apartment buildings. You will definitely find something around 1,200, 1,400. That will be a good price for The Hague. But there's also 2 other options. Rotterdam, which is the city where we live in, and Utrecht. Rotterdam is the city with the biggest port in Europe, a city that's constantly developing. It's actually the 2nd biggest city in the Netherlands. It has around, I think, 800,000 people, something like that, I'm not really sure. Of course, it's still an expensive city, so don't assume that it's going to be cheap to live here, but it's definitely cheaper than Amsterdam and The Hague. From what we've seen here, you can even find apartments under 1,000 euros if you're lucky. So let's say we could look at something between 800 to 1,200, 1,400 for your average small apartment in an old building. And I know that the salaries in Rotterdam are also pretty good, so it's actually a pretty good place to live in. And the last city is Utrecht. So Utrecht is the 4th biggest city in the Netherlands. It's actually the fastest growing city right now. You can assume that it's also the city that has been affected the most by this housing crisis. However, even if it's really, really difficult to find apartments right now in Utrecht, I still see the prices are still, still not there yet to the level of Amsterdam or Rotterdam or The Hague. When we rented an apartment there half a year ago, we paid around 1,200 and people said it was expensive. So let's say you could definitely find something around 1,000 euros for a studio or a one bedroom apartment for yourself, which is pretty nice. Just keep in mind that it's a very fast growing city. There's also a lot of students there. So if you plan on moving there, avoid summertime because that's when the most people come there, for example, the students. So also some other things to note while looking for an apartment here would be that when you want to rent an apartment here, you need to do things. So first thing is, most rental agencies require you to have a minimum gross income, which sometimes is actually very high. Rental agencies ask that your gross income should be at least 3 times the rent. So if the rent they ask for is 1,000 euros, you will need at least 3,000 euros in gross income. Of course, when you are with a partner, the story is different. So if both of you have at least 3,000 euros in total, then it should be fine. So no need to worry about that. However, there are some other rental agencies that have different rules. For example, I know there was one rental agency that took the highest gross income from the 2 partners, and then the lower income, they would only take 50% out of it. So just make sure you check on the rental agency website so that you are always sure that you will be able to afford the apartment. The other thing that they also asked for is the deposit. Of course, like in any other country, you would need to make a deposit to leave a down payment for the apartment. Most of the time, it's usually just 1 times the rent. For example, if the rent is 1,000 euros, you will have to put in an extra 1,000 euros as a deposit. However, again, some other rental agencies require you 2 times the rent. Just make sure you check this before you actually do anything. Now you're probably seeing that the minimum gross income requirement is kind of the biggest factor as to why so many people here find it difficult to find an apartment, and as to why so many people here live with roommates, for example. Because again, I guess most apartments are over 1,200 euros, which means that you need at least 3,600 euros in gross income. It's actually a pretty high income, especially for people that just started their working lives, like us, for example. Make sure you find the best deal. If it's really difficult for you, then we definitely recommend you should search for a roommate, an apartment where you can split the costs, just like you would have a partner, in case if you don't have any partner.
So first things first, there are a few websites that help you search for a desired apartment here in the Netherlands. They are all search engines which will help you filter on your desired criteria for the apartment and the specific area which you are looking for. Those are Fonda or Pararius. From our experience, we mainly used Fonda, and through Fonda we connected with multiple real estate agencies, and we also talked with them on the phone and applied to their website when we were searching for an apartment to rent last summer. If you are looking for an apartment on Fonda, I recommend you to go directly to their website and not necessarily on their app if you don't know Dutch. What we usually do, we enter the website, we go to the renting or buying option, and you search for the city you are looking for and click search. Then I recommend you to search with filters. So what's really important is actually the offer time. So you have an option here, offered since. This actually means when the listing was posted in the past 24 hours, 3 days ago, 5 days ago, and you can choose between them, but I recommend you to choose the last 3 days or past 24 hours, because guess what? The apartments are rented out pretty fast, and even if you see them on Fonda, they might not be available anymore. Another nice filter is to go directly on the map and see in which area the apartments are available, and you can click on them and see details about the apartment, about the price, about the surface and how many rooms there are. And after you search, and if you really find an apartment that you're interested in, be sure to read the description very carefully, because in the description you will see what the real estate is requesting you to, as a tenant or as a person interested, to fill in order to qualify for a viewing. Because in the Netherlands the market is pretty tough when it comes to renting or buying a house. So even if you like an apartment and you want to see it, you might not be able to get to the viewing. What we really did to secure an apartment was to read the description of the posting very carefully in order to see what the real estate demands from us, which documents, when to submit them, and what are their details of contact in case we need to contact them. A very important aspect is, if you really like the apartment and it says that it's available on the website, then please call the real estate and talk with them. Tell them that you're really interested in the apartment, that you're serious, and tell them what your work situation is, family situation, why do you want to live in the area, and ask them if you want to view the apartment, if you can register through them. They might give you really valuable information, such as if the apartment is still available, how many people are registered for the viewing, if you need to fill in the letter of intent and what to include there. And why do you need a letter of intent? Well, the demand is pretty high for the apartment, so the landlord will choose a tenant based also on the letter of intent. So it's important to include there what your situation is, if you are living with a partner, if you are living alone, what is your income situation, a bit of a backstory, where are you coming from, why do you want to live in that area. It's important, for example, if you are working in that area or if your partner works in that area, to state that, to enforce a bit your arguments. Also, when you're looking for an apartment to rent, please keep in mind that Netherlands offers 3 options. You can rent a furnished apartment where you have all the necessary furniture, well-equipped kitchen, bathroom, like dining table, sofa, bed, everything you might have in a house, and when you move in you can directly use it, no need to buy extra stuff. Another option is the upholstered apartment, where you have the basic stuff like the equipped kitchen, the flooring. And the nice thing of renting an upholstered home is that you can furnish it in your own style, and if you think that you want to live there for a longer period of time, it's nice to have it as you like. And the third type of apartment that you can find is an unfurnished one. So if you don't find an apartment to buy, then you will choose to rent an unfurnished apartment and to build it by yourself or furnish it by yourself, because this apartment doesn't come with anything. So you'll have only the concrete floor, bare walls and ceilings. The only advantage will be that the rent is lower, but of course your investment will be higher than in the other 2 types of apartments. And I almost forgot about one thing. When you saw the apartment and you really liked it, usually there is a bidding system. So how does this work? On the website of the agency, after you view the apartment, you can go into your account and bid for the apartment. There's a listing price, and there are people that viewed the apartment and they are bidding together on the website. When we did that, we could see also how much the others have bid, but as a tip, it's not always the case that the highest bidder will win the auction. It's also based on the letter of intent about which I talked before, because the landlord will always put in balance the type of person that wants to rent their apartment and of course also the money, but both they need to come in balance. So always keep in mind, don't bid too much, because then you will regret it when every month you'll need to pay more when you could have paid way less. So good luck in finding your apartment in the Netherlands. Hope these informations are valuable for you. Let us know in the comments what else you would like to know more about the Netherlands.
So that's it, guys. We hope this guide is going to be useful to you. Of course, it's just a simple guide. We didn't go that much in depth. In real life, it's going to be a bit different. So make sure you read everything that you can.
Alright, thank you guys for watching. We will also leave some useful links down below. Hopefully they will be as well useful for you. If you want to see more from the Netherlands, or if you have any suggestions for us, they are welcomed in the comments, so don't hesitate. Thank you again, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.